Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sean Lang. I've spent the last several years building and operating a digital agency that's grown past 75 people. That's definitely shaped how I think about the things that really matter when things get complex. Now, just a reminder before we get into it, we've got a free community with tons of helpful agency resources, templates, tools, you name it, over at agencyuplift.co/group. And just as a secondary reminder, we are now posting all of these full episodes as long form content over on the YouTube channel. Just go over to YouTube and search Agency Uplift Podcast and you'll find it so you can see what my ugly face looks like. Okay. Today, I am joined by Stephan Bajaio, CEO of VibeLogic. Now, VibeLogic is a web presence intelligence company, and I'm sure that you will at some point tell us all about what that is. Stephan, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Looking forward to chatting and hopefully dropping some knowledge bombs for some agencies out there. It's
Absolutely.
an interesting world right now.
So tell us about VibeLogic.
Sure. So VibeLogic is kind of birthed out of my previous experience at Conductor and my background in SEO. Came into it really originally just frankly finally taking the leap, right? I'd done the build your own company with the VC money and all that good stuff, and we can get into that ad nauseum later. And I'd seen how the other half lives as the CMO of a software company for a little while as well. And I just wanted to get back to like my roots, frankly, after 14 years. Well, by that point, it was probably like 18 years of being in search and saying like, there's still more to be done here, right? And then AI showed up at the same time, so it became this really like interesting time to be in the space. So I basically took a concept I'd been talking about since 2012, and just kind of brought it back to life, which I now dubbed web presence intelligence, which is just a simple concept. Um, we in SEO have traditionally thought of, well, when we were smart enough to talk to execs about it, because we weren't the best at evangelizing, um, supply and demand, which is the business language, right, of what we're looking to accomplish. Demand was the way people essentially express themselves in the search bar. And I like to say no one lies to their search bar. And the other side of the coin was supply. The problem was, from an SEO perspective, supply was your rankings opportunities. It was like, it was very, I want to say it was navel gazing and it was egotistical. I should be the answer, right? But the reality was you shouldn't necessarily be the answer. And oftentimes people ignored the landscape of what was coming back in those results because it didn't apply to their version or their silo within an organization, right? Especially in the enterprise companies that I worked with, the person charged with SEO is not the person doing social. So if Reddit shows up and is frequently showing up for a topic, good luck trying to explain to the social person to change their top 10 things to do this week and add this one to the list, let alone, hey, here's the PR team should be going after this because this publisher is performing well. Or maybe, there's a partnership availability here that we're not thinking about. And so really what it was saying, if we took supply and we like flattened the organization, like when I was a CMO, what if we just took that information and handed it out to the different teams to take action? What could we do? And funny enough, those are the things that influence the LLMs anyway. It's the things that influence the search engines. So um, our focus has really been on help companies understand what that landscape looks like, what the true opportunities are for any given topic. And then now we're really, really, really honed in on this idea of like, there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom in companies that they haven't shared and have not exposed to the web yet. And this one interesting time. I like to call it the time before we were recording everything on your phone. Like some of you might be old enough to have experienced this. I was lucky enough not to have my college experience. Sean, was your college experience on film or no? No. Okay. So mine wasn't either. Like you had to have a megapixel camera with you or like a really crappy flip phone, which could never recognize who did what. Right. So we were lucky. But the reality is like, I have a kid. She's 5. She's probably the recording started, let's say at the latest in 2026, where essentially all business meetings are now recorded, right? Everything is recorded. Soon they'll have a pendant that they're going to tell you from an agent perspective helps you. That'll all be recorded. And so this idea that like the recorded web and what the training data and all the stuff that's out there to be looked at, it's available to you. It's available and it will be available moving forward. But moving backwards, it doesn't exist. It's trapped in Sean's head. It's trapped in my head. It's trapped in all of your heads. You didn't record everything, all your experiences, all your insights, all your stuff. So you can't say, hey, let's just be fun about it. Hey, Siri, tell me how 5 examples of resiliency from 2020. You have to think about those, right? Like COVID sucked, and you have to think about what, but if something had been recording you that whole time, you bet those dots could have been connected. So memory will be something different in the future. But right now, inside of these companies, there's an amazing moment worth capitalizing on in having them unearth their wisdom. And I think that like a combination of them unearthing their wisdom and then knowing where to place that wisdom with web presence intelligence is kind of a 1-2 punch.
And
That was a lot.
that's yeah, it's a lot, but that's also something that coincidentally, I mean, I think agencies are very positioned to understand, and yet they're also just as terrible at it.
Oh, of course, the cobbler has no shoes. Don't go look at
Exactly.
the website, God forbid, you know? But we're starting to eat our own dog food, AKA drink our own champagne, AKA, whatever. So we're starting to do that actually. Me being on this podcast is an example of that, right? It'll create content, Sean will have it. Maybe I get a raw or something. I'll obviously give him credit throughout, and then we'll think about any key pieces that made sense. How can those become content, social, assets, and try and build that all out, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny, like, if you think about it, every single, I mean, and again, you're right, this wasn't the way it was before, but now every single time you get, I mean, on camera, on screen, however you want to call it,
mhm.
you're kind of directly or indirectly creating IP, and then
Oh, yeah.
it is kind of just sitting there. One thing that I installed a while ago, which is, completely baby steps compared to what you're talking about, is just uh, after my calls close and then a transcript is generated in Fathom, then right away there's a zap over to an LLM step which says, "Oh, here's 5 great post ideas for you to post on LinkedIn. How about an actual conversation you had about something actual with a real life human being, rather than
Yeah.
all these sort of like performative, I was talking to a client the other day," and it's like, no, you weren't.
No, and it's amazing. Like we do that with Fireflies, but I don't have it with Zap or anything kicking over. I'm old school still and still have to go hit the download button, and I haven't got an API set up like I should and all that good stuff. But conceptually, completely agree with you. So you are ahead of me in that way. But even your team meetings, just like look, you'd be surprised. What lessons can I garner from the team meeting? And I don't mean that just for like leadership and whatever, but literally for thought leadership about running an agency, your culture, right? What could I gather from the conversation we just had? Now, the names of the innocent shall be kept that way, right? We're not going to start being like, Sean was really pissy with Jen at the last meeting. Like, obviously, we wouldn't have that, but we do really have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to availability of data to have a system kind of generate ideas for us and see things in ways that you could argue might be more objective. So, I've had plenty of times where we had team meetings and I just throw those into my favorite LLMs and just let it tell me some ideas. And it'll be really interesting, some of the stuff that comes back.
Absolutely. This again reminds me. So, as you know, I coach founders, and one thing that I get, founders, especially ones that are very new to handing off client management to account manager, they're really, really terrified. One thing that I get them all to sort of set up is like, well, first off, if you don't have transcripts on all calls, what are you doing with your life? So I make sure that they're doing that. And then I hand them this custom GPT that I built, and I said, okay, so the next time you are on a client call, you are going to then take the transcript from the client call and you're going to run it through my client call analyzer GPT. And I've trained it on what the effective client call looks like. It's like, here's what we did, here's what we're doing now, here's why it matters, here's what comes next, etc. Basic client leadership. And then I tell them, like, this way now you don't need to be on every single call, but you can still coach them. You can still coach the new account manager on every single call as well. And then eventually you can just step out of it and be like, just review the call coaching notes afterwards. You're going to find 5 or 6 things that you probably could have done better, and then just apply those next time. And then we're going to watch you get better and better and better and better and better. And it's just from that intelligence from the call itself. You just standardize it however it looks like for your agency or whatever, and it's better.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we'll throw this one out there, right? If you're an agency right now and you're not recording your client calls, I mean, as long as they let you, but 9 times out of 10, it's so commonplace now that it's fine. Mine are always cool with it. And not building that into like a notebook LLM or something to keep track of your client communications with them so you can call back to conversations in the past, so you can recognize trends, so you can challenge and ask a few things along the way. You're sleeping on it like hard, because that to me is that's going to be the minimum viable, like, access to what's expected. I like to say, think back to like the best time you ever hit a call center and the best experience you ever had. I don't know, Sean, can you think of one company that was like that for you?
That they were a great call center to call.
Yeah, like just memorable customer service from a call center that you just were like, wow.
Actually, yeah, it was an hour-long conversation with somebody helping me get business banking set up, which is, again, I hate talking to the bank at all, and it was great. It was a fantastic
Okay.
experience.
So that's and now, is that something you're just gonna hold to banks, or are you gonna hold that across everyone?
Yeah,
Every conversation you have on the
it
phone,
gets
right?
applied to everything. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So your your highest common denominator of expectation now sets the bar and everyone else goes beneath it, right? So the best people in the game are gonna be the ones who can habitually call back to things that were discussed in conversations 3 months ago, because that data isn't it's not that they have the greatest memory. Memory is not a thing anymore. Memory is in the computer. We can that's such an old person thing to say. It's in the computer. Hold on,
Reminds me of Zoolander.
let me get my cane. But no, I mean, think about it. It really is something that is an equalizer if you have it, right? Calls that are not recorded are the bane of my existence. I can't do a lot. It's left to my memory, which A sucks. B, I am no note taker. Like I've had ADD all my life. You don't want me taking notes. And I won't even be paying attention to the call if I was trying to keep up, right? I'm a slow writer and reader. I have learning disabilities. And yeah, I'm not the guy who's going to do that. In vibe logic, I'm way more vibe than I am logic. Right? If that hasn't already been evident
That's hilarious.
in our conversation.
So,
So
speaking of Vibe Logic, how did we get here? I mean, you've had a bit of an interesting journey to get here. I'd love for the audience to hear a bit about that.
sure. So New York, born and raised. Um, access to computers really early, like really early. My dad's and parents are immigrants, so didn't have like the baseball playing dad. I had you know, the architect dad who got his hands on PCs early, and I was like on a 386 and 486, and it was exciting, and you know, and so I always had a love for online, or we'll say technology from the beginning, right? Went my way through corporates for a while, ended up at Yahoo, followed a bunch of people from Yahoo who were pretty amazing over to this company called Link Experts, little company doing SEO. I'd never heard of SEO really, even though I worked at Yahoo. I was in all this advertising stuff. I wasn't really dealing with organic at all. And 2006, probably, I think around that time, I head over to Link Experts, and the whole concept was paid link building. Shame, no bueno, right? Except we were turning down more business than we were doing. So, like, if you wanted to buy links for cheap wine and your wine was $50, we literally had a guy we called the quality czar. You'd have to send him requests and he'd be like, no. He actually prided himself in the amount of revenue that he turned down. It was a lot of, I mean, it wasn't fun because you'd be like, I want to make this deal for the client and I can't because. So we were actually connecting like the AT&Ts of the world with Forbes. So the big publishers and the big like brand names. Now, what was really cool about that was I got access to the people who were running SEO at all these companies, and guess what? They didn't know that much.
I knew you were gonna say that.
It's still early days.
Yep.
I used to joke around that it was SEO was Stefan's employment opportunity. So I literally played the game of you call one, they tell you something, you repeat that to the next one, you get that person's thoughts on it. You call back the first one and say, "Hey, what do you think about that?" And literally I was island hopping. Everyone felt like they were on their own little island with one palm tree and two coconuts, and like they're like, "No one is experiencing the hardship of SEO like me." And I'm like, I had this conversation 6 times today. Like, you're all sitting in other corporates, sometimes in the same company. Siemens, I think I would speak to 7 different divisions of Siemens, and they didn't know each other. I knew all of them, and I knew all of their pain points, and I was like, "We should just do group therapy at this point. Why am I doing one-on-ones?" Like, so it literally became that, and as we went through the process, we became like a $1 million a month recurring, and we were doing like 50% profit on those. Like, the publisher would get 50%, we'd get 50%, and then the rest was the margin, right? But, like, we grew to 70 people. When I got there, we were probably 20, um, busting at the seams. But Mayday was coming in, and Matt Cutts wasn't happy. I'm throwing some names, old school names into the mix here. Um, and we also realized, like Seth realized, who's the original co-founder of Conductor, just said, or of Vibe Logic, Vibe Logic, of Conductor and Link Experts, and said, you know, why are we handing these guys Excel spreadsheets? Doesn't this seem a little stupid? And we're all kind of like, yeah. And he's like, SaaS is really a thing now. Why aren't we selling the world's largest brands a solution for them to understand what's going on with their search? Like, can they really just be depending on Google Analytics, which, by the way, was already removing provided? So that was a whole catastrophe, right? That we got to live through. Um, so all of a sudden, he's like, we should build software. And we did. So we sold off the company. We sold off like 50 or 60 people. We ended up about 20 or 30 people. Everyone was named co-founder at the time. Probably like I say, a way to keep us all there. Some stayed, some left. We all got shares, which was a really good thing. And then from that point on, I don't know if I'm like gullible or if I'm just like tenacious, but I like every day I tried to earn the co-founder title. That was my thing. I actually used the co-founder title. I was one of the only people, and I know people looked at me at the office like, "Dude, really? Like the co-founder title?" And I swear, the next 12 years, I would literally fight day and night to earn that title. I'd build 3, 4 teams. I'd fall on my face. Every team had never been built before by me, let alone existing in the company. Um, One of the biggest ones, well, the biggest one I built was the professional services team. So basically recognizing that we didn't have the SEO clout we needed in the SEO software company. So, and realizing our clients didn't have the in-house expertise. So here you are trying to sell them the keys to a Ferrari, but they're all like 16-year-old learner's permit kids who are like, cool, what do I do with this car? And you're like, whoa, slow down. Um, and so I built a team from 0 to 65 global SEOs inside of Conductor. What was really cool was I didn't really have to hunt for my meals, right? There were account executives, and there were MDRs, so market development research folks that were dialing the phones and creating leads and doing all that hard work. And it was, I had the luxury of having these massive brands be put in front of me and me going like, how can I help? And just coming up with solutions, right? Which was amazing. Like, it was my dream in certain ways because I wasn't even held to what the product could or couldn't do. I even had people on the team um, that literally were, I hate to say it, but kids that taught themselves Python. And that was the coolest, right? I didn't need the best, most expensive engineer because we were building skunkworks. If we wanted to do something, we could do it. So we built hundreds of little tools that nobody ever got access to except for us, that we could take the data and then drop it into the massive product that was enterprise grade, right? And we had access to all of these insane brands. I got to sit across from the C-suite of StubHub and tell them how it should be done, or the CMO of Logitech and tell her how product naming should be empowered by actual queries that were out there in the marketplace being used. So much so that I would later become the evangelist of the company. I know that's a weird term. My mom was like, "Are you getting religious?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, no.
Only
Evangelist."
about Logitech.
Yeah, yeah, no. we, you know, it was less even about promoting Conductor. It was about my, let's call it at that point, my probably 8-year frustration with SEO. Recognizing again that I felt the data in the channel was trapped in the worst channel possible, because I love my SEO community, don't get me wrong, but they sucked, past tense. They really sucked at evangelizing their role, let alone their potential of what they could do.
I mean, that's really, really, really common of technical people in general. I think that they kind of like pride themselves in their gatekeeping a little bit, which kind of just, keeps them from a lot of praise and opportunity. How did you how did this experience kind of affect how you are building at Vibe Logic now? Because it sounds like you kind of had the experience that kind of like ran the gamut of all of the things, like the fact that you worked every day to earn that co-founder title. I mean, I don't think that means you're a sucker at all. I think that, like, I mean, those are the employees that you want on the team, is the people that is the person who shows up, like, earning the title every single day. And I think that when people see you do that, then they also start to model that as well, which makes for a much better team than a bunch of people who are just like, nah, I'm punched out now, I'm gonna hit the hay.
Well, I mean, listen, there were a lot of also very important key points that I think we haven't touched, like, for example, we were bought by WeWork, and then we bought ourselves back from WeWork before it imploded. So that was like a whole get ingested by a rocket ship in the midst of its launch, and then jump out with a parachute before it potentially explodes. Like, I don't know how else to put that. It was an amazing ride. But again, I got to see so many versions of business and so many things that and so many versions of Conductor, honestly, that I learned a few lessons about what I wanted. Um, and so I think I bring those to Vibe Logic. Like, I don't want to grow too fast. Just don't want to. I want it to be more uh I, I want it to be more rhythmic and concise in the way that we do things rather than just trying to capture the market, okay?
Yep.
I want to fall in love with the problem. I think I'm starting in year 2 to fall in love with the problem. Um, I think it's super important to fall in love with the problem. That was actually some great feedback I got, via LinkedIn from the, one of the founders of Waze. He said, like, "You need," I quoted him, um, and he, like, responded on LinkedIn, and it's the whole concept of fall in love with the problem. Like, if you really fall in love with the problem, everything else figures itself out. But you have to be in love with that problem. You have to be
Mm.
singularly focused that that problem is something you have to solve. And you don't allow yourself the distractions. I can tell you year 1 was wrought with distraction for me. Wrought with distraction. Like, year 2 halfway in is still wrought with distraction. And there
That's
still is, like, a bit
yeah.
of shiny object syndrome, and should
I
we go
mean,
after this? And
a bit.
someone's
I
bringing you
mean,
an opportunity like this. What do you
the
do? It's not your ICP. Oh my god.
the agency journey basically is just shiny objects personified, and it's so hard to just keep your head down and walk along the path that you said you were going to start
And
at the start of the year.
keep to it, and keep to it. It's like it's just, what do you do when you're worrying about payroll, but you know this isn't the right client to renew?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's you're gonna have 5 of those every single month, 5 versions
Yeah.
of that. What do they call that? There's some dilemma that they get AI to run every now and then. What is it called? Like the train. the trolley car dilemma or something like that, where it's
Oh,
like
yeah,
there's
I'm sure
one
they have
person
some smarter than me way
one
of
person
thinking
or
about it.
four
I just
people, and
call it
like, what
being
do
an
you choose?
entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So so what did how have you tried to align or instill this ethos of falling in love with the problem with the team? Because I feel like that's if you can have a team that is aligned with that I don't think anyone can stop you really at that point.
Well, I think, like, I'm not gonna lie, my thrashing probably didn't help. Right? Wanting to go in one direction, then thinking that's not the right direction, thinking of an ICP, wanting to niche, not being sure, having deals that are too big to ignore, fall into your lap, and then, try to figure out whether you do them or don't. Go for an RFP or don't go for an RFP that's gonna take you a week to fulfill. All of that stuff, right? All of that stuff, as much as you may or may not recognize it, weighs on your people. And if you're not careful, it will burn them. Like, they want a certain amount of leadership, even if you're small. And that's hard because the warts really show when you're small. Like, I'm not hiding it. I'm not as you can probably tell, I'm not a political guy. In fact, one of the things I think I learned at Conductor, I don't like the 400 person company. Like, I'm not meant to be there. If I was offered $1 billion company's CMO role, I wouldn't fit well. I know that. Could I do it? Probably. Would I be comfortable? No. Would that lack of comfort create lack of joy in me over time and probably wear me out of the job? Yeah, because I couldn't be in love with the problem because I'd be so distracted by all of the politics and the BS that comes along with a certain size company, right? I want to know that when I splash, that ripples are made. I want to
Mhm.
know that waves can happen, right? I want to see those things. When you're in a company when you no longer know everyone's name, that's gone. I
Yeah,
think that's gone.
it's an interesting vibe for sure. I can definitely confirm that. So where are you taking Vibe Logic? Where is Vibe Logic going in the future?
So right now, I mean, we're an agency in order to frankly keep the lights on. Okay. I think we're an agency in order to um, build a team of great, smart individuals. At heart, I'm still a software guy. I still love software. I still love that idea. But the key behind everything in my mind is that the wisdom play that I think has been untapped in the market. I think too many companies have too much wisdom that is not exposed to the web yet. And we need to allow for that to get out. And I think that it's just sitting there. Like, I think that there are no more excuses of like, I don't have the time, right? An executive should not say, I don't have the time to create content. This is creating content. An hour of your time can be made into 50 assets. That's crazy talk to say that that the obstacle to content creation is there. Um, I'm not saying it's all easy button AI stuff because I don't believe that that's the answer, but I do believe we're enabled with I feel bad for anyone who owned a transcription company, Sean. Nobody talks about that. There's, like, dead bodies everywhere who used to do transcription, right? Like, a whole industry was decimated by AI, and it's by like, almost without a thought, right? Like an afterthought. People don't go like, "Oh, I feel bad for the transcription people." But that whole concept of, like, we have all these assets at our disposal, and even the red tape in someone's company is worth money. Like, just think about this one. I thought about this the other day. How many times has someone in their company tried to publish something, but the lawyer said no? Okay, that's an experience we've all probably gone through, and legal jumped in, depending on the size company that's your clients. Okay, cool. Now, if that's been repeated like 100 times, that means there's 100 emails with a lawyer explaining themselves sitting in an inbox somewhere. We couldn't take that, throw that in Claude, and build something that would test the future content you're about to put through. That way, call out which emails it came from and help you build the automatic email to the lawyer that's like, hey, I'm about to send this. I'm about to hit publish on this, but I wanted to run it by you as usual. I want to remind you that I recognize that in May, you told me not to do this. So we removed that from it. We did this and we did that because of the insights you gave us. What lawyer, who usually half the time is like putting their finger in the air, being like, I feel like this should be published. I feel like this shouldn't. It's like a flip of a coin. What lawyer's not going to let you run that? Right. So my point is, those are like the leftover emails of red tape that are sitting in an inbox somewhere. There is so much data. There's never been this much data that has been unused in a way that could be used. And so for me, for Vibe Logic, for the way I look at companies, I'm like, your thought leadership is missing. You have, especially for service businesses, B2B, people are often your assets and you're not even showing them off. You're not even using them to their full capacity. That's wild. That's wild. All because you're scared they're going to get poached. Like, it's your job to build a culture that retains people. So what are we really? You don't think every prospect and client goes and looks at the people in your agency? And right now you're more worried that if you help them with their LinkedIn profile, they'd get another job.
Yeah,
That's the
really, right?
complete wrong
Yeah.
way of looking at it,
Oh,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. Well, Stefan, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for coming on. Where can people find out more about you and VibeLogic?
Sure. So vibelogic.com. I just put up a resource center with some really cool, like, free tooling and stuff. There's a SEO tech to exec translator, which I think is kind of fun, and a
Nice.
few other nice little vibe coded things from content I'd written, because I'm realizing that converting content into that stuff is more fun. And then my drug of choice in social is LinkedIn. So hit me up there. Please don't sell me anything. The other inbox is flowing into the focused inbox, right? But like, we're not in the market to buy any, like, white label or any of that stuff. But I really do love dealing with problems. So if you've got a sticky problem in your business and you just want, like, a quick piece of advice, or even just want someone else's eyes or take on it, I'm not gonna lie, like, I kind of get a lot of dopamine off that. So if you want to give me a dopamine hit on a random Tuesday, like, hit me up.
Guys, go give Stefan a hit. He needs it. Thanks for coming on, man.
Much appreciated, Sean. Thanks so much.